Hey everybody, Clay Rockwood here. Hey, thanks for watching the video. I want to talk today about syndications, right? This is a word you may have heard if you're in the real estate space, or maybe if you're not. It's a strange word that a lot of people ask me, what is a syndication? I've heard this word thrown around, and generally it's associated with larger deals, like whether that's multifamily, office, retail. A syndication is a very specific vehicle that we use in this business to buy larger properties. And today I want to deep dive on what a syndication is, how they are structured to help you kind of get your start, or if you've done your first syndication, or if you've done maybe one or two, just to understand them a little better to how they should be structured. So what is a syndication? A syndication, basically, the definition is a pooling of money, right? When we're talking about real estate, if we're pooling people's money together to buy a larger asset, because, think about it this way. If you have $50,000 or $100,000, let's say, and you want to invest in real estate, you want to buy a larger deal. Maybe that's a 50-unit apartment complex or a 100-unit apartment complex. It's a great deal. Well, obviously $50,000 or $100,000 isn't going to get you very far when you're buying a multi-million-dollar asset, right? So that's why we syndicate, or we pool together multiple investors' money for the common goal of purchasing this larger property, right? And that's the whole purpose behind it. It's pooling together money to take down larger properties. Okay, now when you do this, you have to be strategic in how you structure these deals, how you structure the partnerships, because you have multiple investors, right? With a lot of times large checks involved and a lot of money, and you want to make sure that it's structured correctly so all the investors are protected, and so that the legal structure and entity is set up correctly. So I want to talk today a little bit about how we structure those deals, some different structure methods to do a syndication. Assuming you've gone and raised money from investors, you've got people interested in a property, now you just have to understand how the deal is structured. So first, there's maybe 2 or 3 common ways that a syndication is structured. The first is called a 506C. Now again, we're talking terms here that you can Google and look up later, but basically that's just a legal structure of how you can legally take down these properties through a syndication. So a 506C, what that basically is, it's the SEC, right? So this is the governing body that is over securities and making sure investors are protected and safe from bad actors, right? Or from people that are trying to take advantage or scam people, right? So the SEC is highly involved in these syndications in this process, and you need to ensure you're doing it correctly according to their rules and guidelines. So a 506C is a structure where it allows you to accept money from only accredited investors. So what is an accredited investor? An accredited investor is someone, an individual or a couple, that has a net worth of over $1 million, not including their personal residence. So if they own businesses or other real estate, right, their net worth has to be over $1 million, and they have to have an annual income for the previous 2 years of at least $200,000 if they're single, or $300,000 if they're married, okay? There's other rules that you can qualify for, trusts and things like that, but those are the 2 kind of general qualifications to be an accredited investor, right? So through a 506C offering, you can only accept money from accredited investors. Now again, the SEC set it up this way so that they're making sure that only people that are investing are people that have some business knowledge or understand the risks, right? You're not going to steal money from grandma or from someone that just got out of college that maybe has 10 grand or whatever it is, right? You don't want to steal someone's savings and then lose it all. So an accredited investor typically will have the knowledge or the financial means to make these large scale investments and take on that risk. So the 506C, the beauty behind that structure is that you can openly advertise or crowdsource these offerings. So let's say you go find, we're just gonna use an example of a 100-unit apartment complex, right? Say you wanna raise money for this deal and you start approaching different accredited investors. Well, you can openly market this opportunity or in this investment. I mean, you could post on Facebook, you could do an ad about this in the newspaper. I mean, you can openly crowdsource and market this to accept money from pretty much anyone you know or don't know. So the second method or vehicle that you can use to structure a syndication is called a 506B. Okay, so we talked about a 506C. Now we're talking about a 506B. And again, you can look these up if you're curious what those terms mean, but a 506B in general means you can go accept money from accredited investors, as many as you want, but you can also accept money from non-accredited investors. But there's a limit of only 35 non-accredited investors in a 506B. So that means you can go raise money from grandma, from your Uncle Jim, who may have some cash sitting in a savings account, from anyone that may not fit that accredited investor criteria. You can raise money from them, but only up to 35 individuals, okay? Now the catch here with the 506B is that you cannot openly advertise the offering. So what does that mean? I couldn't go on Facebook and say, hey, I'm raising money for this property. Who wants to invest with me, right? That's a big no-no. The SEC would come after you if they found out, right? Because again, they're trying to protect people that you may not know. So the idea here is that you are raising capital from people that you know. They may have a personal relationship with you already, that they know and trust you, that you have a pre-existing relationship with, right? Now, another way that we've done deals and raised money and done syndications is through, it's kind of outside both of those vehicles, and we just do what's called a subscription agreement, right? A lot of times this is part of those other models, but basically what we do is we're saying, hey, investors, you can invest in this opportunity, but you have to self-declare whether you're an accredited investor or not. With these other models, the 506B and the 506C, you have to verify whether that investor is accredited or not. So it's a lot of upfront work. You have to obtain a letter from their CPA, a verified letter stating that they're accredited. You basically have to do some background digging on these investors to verify that they're accredited, which can be a huge burden and a hassle for someone just getting into the space, right? That's why we like this subscription agreement model, where we're not marketing this openly, but with our relationship, with our network that we've built of investors, of capital partners and things like that, we can approach them and say, hey, we've got this deal, we've got this, this opportunity. Do you want to invest in this with us? And then we send them a document that they have to self-declare whether they're accredited or not. And then it doesn't put the burden on us to follow up with their CPA or to find out if they're actually accredited. They self-declare. So these are three of the methods that are that you can kind of structure to do a syndication. Now again, you're going to have an attorney help you draft all of these documents and understand this. So that's what I'd recommend. If you're wanting to do a syndication, talk to an attorney that does syndications, or that understands that space, and they can walk you through all the different options and the process and do all the paperwork for you, right? I would definitely not recommend you do this on your own. So great, let's say you've set up a syndication, you've raised money. Now, how do you legally structure this? What does the structure look like between all the investors, between us or you as the operator or the person that sourced the deal? Well, typically what we do is we set up a single entity or a single asset LLC, meaning when we go buy this property, this 100-unit apartment complex, let's say, we're going to create, or have our attorney create, a separate LLC, right? Its own limited liability company that's going to own that property, right? And that's the only property that LLC owns. That's again how I'd recommend you doing it, because there's legal protections there and tax implications, etc. So you want to set up a single entity LLC, and then your investors are going to get shares in the LLC, right? So again, your attorney is going to set this up in the operating agreement of the LLC to be able to allocate shares. So let's say, for example, a lot of our deals we do, let's say we have 10,000 shares, okay, to give out or to sell in this LLC. So let's say we have a deal structure where we're raising money and we're offering 70% equity in the deal to investors, and then we retain the other 30% ownership or equity in the deal, right? It's a 70-30 split, right? That's pretty standard deal structure. So how do we allocate those shares? Well, let's say an investor wants to invest $100,000 into the syndication. Well, they would get allocated a pro rata share of those 7,000 shares, right? You take those 10,000 shares total, 70% of the equity, that means they get 7,000 shares, and we keep 3,000 shares for us. And then they get a pro rata amount of shares based on the amount of money they invest. So they invest $50,000, they get less shares. They invest $100,000, they get more shares of that $7,000, right? And so that's just how you kind of allocate the ownership structure. And it's very detailed, and there's a capitalization table, right? That you want to keep track of all of that stuff that gets recorded with the operating agreement, so that you know which investor owns which amount, and it's all there in the legal documents, right? There's no confusion. There's no, hey, well, you told me you gave me X amount of shares. No, they signed all the documents. It's in their subscription agreement, the exact amount of shares. Now again, if this sounds confusing or daunting, don't let it be. An attorney will help you set all of this up, all of the documents, and explain this. But I just kind of want to help you understand how these deals are structured, because that's a common question I get around syndications. So you allocate the amount of shares, each investor signs the paperwork, and they get allocated that amount of shares. And then really, at that point, your syndication is set up and ready to go, right? The operating agreement will even outline, how distributions happen, how often they get paid, what happens if things go south, right? What happens if you default or the property goes into foreclosure, whatever, right? It kind of outlines all the scenarios so that you're protected as the owner operator or as the sponsor of the deal, so that everyone's on the same page, right? And again, all the investors, they review this documentation, they can bring it to their attorney, they can ask questions, if you put your attorneys in touch with each other, right? But that's the typical structure that I've seen that we've done with our syndications. And I would think that the easiest and cleanest method to do it. There's more complicated deal structures, obviously, you can come up with, or you don't even have to do a syndication. You can do a JV partnership, right? Where you just have one investor that you partner on the deal, and it's more of just a partnership. But when you're going to pool multiple investors' money together, this is the best method. But you just have to make sure you follow some of these rules and understand some of the guidelines behind it to ensure that you're in compliance, and to make sure, the most important thing really is that you're providing a safe, understandable investment for your investors. All right, now that we've covered what a syndication is and how to structure them, this should give you the confidence and know how to at least get pointed in the right direction and structure these deals exactly how we do it, so you can go out and start making money investing in real estate. Hey, thanks for watching, guys. If you want to join our free investor club, go to our website, soarcapitalgroup.com. You can sign up for free, and you can be added to our exclusive list of investors, of partners, of people that are learning the ins and outs of investing in large-scale multifamily or mobile home parks. We'd love to help you out and work with you on future opportunities. Thanks so much.